Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Swiftech H220. Now, I don't know how to kind of lay this one out, but essentially this is an all-in-one water cooling kit, but you can add bits and upgrade it and do all kinds of other things because it's not 100% sealed. Now, I don't want to give too much away about my thoughts about this and everything until we get to the conclusion at the end, because I've got quite a lot that I want to get across about this. And I've done it, I've tested it as I normally would. Something that I have done as well is I've tested the pump and the fans at 12 volts. So these are a best of, you know, kind of the best they're going to be is probably the best way I can put it. So for, you know, when I start talking about other things later on and people might say about, you know, making the pump run slower and stuff like that, obviously that's going to affect your temps. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to, you know, work these minor things out. I obviously don't want to spend, you know, a week testing one bloody cooler because then I haven't got time to do other stuff. But I've had a really good look at this. Because obviously Swiftech are kind of a really well-known, you know, mainstream kind of water cooling brand, whereas like with the other all-in-one units from the likes of Corsair and NZXT and, you know, anybody else that have done them haven't really got any, you know, proper dedicated water cooling experience. Swiftech has, and there's been a lot of kind of fuss around the CES reports and, you know, people expecting this thing to, you know, be the best all-in-one unit possible. So there's been a really high bar put there for it straight away. So this is one of the reasons why I've gone with a best case scenario to have a look at this. And then when we compare it, because I've got you some graphs and stuff to look at later on, when we compare it with the other coolers, it will make it easier for you to kind of get your head around my thoughts and where I'm coming from and stuff like that. What I'll do is I have already done kind of like a quick overview on the Rush Kit channel. I'll put a link underneath if you're interested in that. It's just kind of a little sideline project I've got for just quick, you know, real instant 5-minute format videos that I wouldn't necessarily want to be putting on the TTL channel because people are obviously really used to the real long stuff. But sometimes I can squeeze a box opening out in 5 minutes if I really have to. I don't really like doing that here. I prefer it to be a lot more calm and relaxed, and I don't care if the video goes over 30 minutes. Anyway, what we'll do is we'll have a look at it in this rig because we need to have a look at it installed. And then we'll go on and I'll talk to you about the testing. I'm only going to show you the 4.4 gigahertz and the 4.6 gigahertz results. I don't see any point in showing you the stock results and the 4 gigahertz results because they're quite low down, and this is you know, a fairly hefty cooler, which, you know, it's not a cheap, you know, a low end cooler at all, so I don't need to be showing you the low end stuff. And then we'll move in to a conclusion, which I will warn you I would get comfortable for. But let's bring you in and I'll show you the cooler installed in our test rig. Right then peeps, so this is it installed in our test rig. We've got a Gigabyte UD3 X79. I apologise if the mic made a little noise in, I just plugged it in a little bit more. Anyway, we've got it there, quad channel RAM, that's a HD 7770, doesn't really produce any heat, it's one of the reasons why I use it. The power supply never spins up, so we've got no real arguments there, and we've obviously got it in a Stormtrooper. Now, I've got it mounted around the back with the hose this way, because this is the way I always do it. But with the way they've shown it online, they've had these hoses this end of the case, and they've really done it. So the photos that have been taken, they've done it so it doesn't show off how long the hose are. Now, you may want longer hose, but I have to admit, I've never really been in a place where I've thought the H100, the H100i, or any of those other ones, the hose hasn't been long enough to use in a case. So I don't really know what they were thinking with this, because I think this is just far too long, and it's messy, it doesn't really look nice. I know a lot of people are going to like the fact that it's got bigger hose, so it looks like more like a proper water cooling kit, but to be fair, I really don't like this at all. I did turn the radiator around the other way, and I still think it looks daft. I still think it looks too long. One of the things for me with water cooling And if you look at the Orca rig that I did, it's about having hose as short as possible, so it looks really tight and clean and just looks nicer. This just looks like you've literally, well, what they've done is they've just had 2 lengths of hose, cut it to the right lengths, and then they've just fitted it. They've obviously agreed a length. They've not done it. It just doesn't look right. And I know now people are saying, oh, well, you can take it off and you can cut it down. But if you do that, why didn't you just have a custom water cooling kit in the first place? Because by the time you have to drain the water out of this, trim the hose down, refit it, bleed it, do all that kind of stuff, you could just have a custom water cooling kit in there. It would make no difference. So it's a bit, it just makes me scratch my head and be like, wow, what? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me at all. But yeah, that's how it looks in our rig. We obviously do put the side panel on, and when we run it, we've got 2 fans in the front pulling air in. We've got the rear fan pulling air out. They're on fan speed reducers, and it's really about the actual rig itself. Now we've got the pump and both the fans wired to 12 volts. We are using a splitter board, but we have also tested on our maximum extreme test with them just wired into 12 volts directly, and there was no difference in temp, so we're happy to just run it from the board. But this is just to try and kind of get across that we have looked at and checked pretty much everything. But anyway, what we're going to do now is we'll move on to the graphs, and I'm going to show you 4.4 gigahertz and 4.6 gigahertz. I'm not going to show you the 2 lower ones because obviously this is a pretty high-end cooler with a high price, so we expect it to pass these 2 higher tests. So yeah, I'll show you those, and then we'll have a nice big TTL style conclusion right the way at the end. Okay then peeps, right, moving on to the graph. Just for those of you out there that, do you know what I mean, might not be used to the, this way of looking at things, you can blow it up so you can go full screen so you can see it better, and obviously the resolution will get better if you go up to 720p and 1080p, just to kind of help you out there. But obviously the ones we want to be looking at are the third one up, which is the Swiftech H220, and then the ones above that, the H100, and a little bit further up, we've got the H100i in balanced and the H100i max, but you can obviously compare it with everything. Now, 4.4 gigahertz. This is our third test. We do a stock test and a 4 gigahertz test, and you can go and see those on the Overclock 3D full review. I'll put the click link underneath. So we had an average temperature with the H220, we'll get it out, is 62.5 degrees, an ambient temperature of 20, and a delta temperature of 42.5. So what we'll do is we'll compare our delta temperatures, because that's the most accurate thing. So we've got 42.5 with the Swiftech. With the H100i balance, we've got 40.26. So that's essentially 2 degrees cooler. H100i max, considering that the H220 is running at max anyway, it's actually 38 degrees. So there's a 4 degrees difference there. Now I know straight away people were expecting the Swiftech to be cooler. It is a bit quieter in real world terms, using terms, but the temperatures aren't kind of matching it there. And like I said, I've been real careful with mounting it. I'm running the pump and the fans at 12 volts, so we've done everything we can do to possibly make this a better test. But what we need to do now is move on to 4.6 gigahertz. Right then peeps, so the graph has magically changed. As you can see, there's a lot less results in this, and this is because these are the only coolers we've tested recently since we switched to 2011 that have passed. Just to point out stuff that isn't in this test, we've not got the NHD14 in there, that didn't pass. We've not got the original H100 in there. The reason for that was unless we powered them by 12 volts, we couldn't get them to pass, and we did all the other tests using the fan speed controller on the unit, both at low and at max. And by wiring to 12 volts, it made it a couple of degrees cooler. The fan spin that little bit better, was a little bit louder. But anyway, that's the reason why it's not in there. So Swiftech is at the top, and what we will do is we will compare the light blue, which are the delta temperatures, and that's the average temperature taken, and then take the ambient off of it. It gives us a much more much more average, kind of better temperature that we can compare to. So if we start off with the Swiftech H220 is 53.1 degrees delta. If you have a look at the H80, that's 53.56. So it's less than half a degree's difference between the Swiftech and the H80. If we start looking at the H100i, the delta temperature is 49.83. So there's about three and a quarter. So we'll say 3 degrees in it with it in balance mode. But if we go to the H100i max, which is how the Swiftech was run, we can see it drops down a little bit further to 48.53 degrees. So that's, that's over 4 degrees difference there, which is quite surprising because everyone was expecting the Swiftech to absolutely annihilate the H100i. I think the best kind of like normal kind of thoughts on it was that it was going to match the H100i. I don't think anyone was expecting it to perform worse. And if you have a look in our graphs here, 53.1 degrees delta temperature, it's only the X60 in silent mode, and I mean that was properly quiet as well, and the H80 that are warmer. So considering, this was meant to be an extreme kit and do really, really well, in this graph, the Swiftech is surprisingly poor. But what we're going to do now is we'll move on to the conclusion, and we'll give you a good wrap up with everything there, so you're not just staring at a graph all the time. But yeah, it's time to move on. Okie chokie. Right, so you've seen the results. Now I'm pretty sure that there's going to be people out there that are going to have opinions and stuff on this straight away, but I'm going to tell you the award, and then we'll discuss everything about what I think about this cooler and stuff. And go from there. And quite surprisingly, I'm going to give it the silver award. Now, straight off the bat, I'm going to say I've not had 100% price given to me in GBP, so in pounds, sterling, whatever you want to call it. But at the moment, the pound's quite weak against the dollar, and the dollar price is 139.99. So, that's its its RRP. Some retailers may even charge more for it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to base my price on being around the £120 mark, but I would not bat an eyelid if it was more. So I think I'm being quite nice because I think it is probably going to be around there. My personal opinion is I think it's going to come in the UK at 124.99. Nobody really knows yet because the main distributor for Swiftech, I'm not sure whether it's Europe, it's definitely the UK, I think it's Swiftech Europe. They don't even have a price on file yet. So we're going to go with it being around 120 quid. To be fair, if it's any more than that, I may even knock the award back a little bit more. So right, there was only one test where the H220 really beat the H100, and on that test, to be fair, it's because the Corsair, the temps never really got enough that the fans decided that they wanted to kick in. And where we've had the pump and the fans running at 12 volts, that was the reason why it kind of pulled ahead. I still admit to you though, I'm still a little bit surprised about the gaps that were consistently there. I mean, in the 4.6 gigahertz test, the H100i balanced beat this maxed out. But let's talk about some of the good points about this to start off with. The fans on it I'm actually really surprised with because they do move a fair amount of air, and it's running here now at 12 volts and it's not stupidly overpowering. Generally when we wire stuff up to 12 volts like this, it just gets on your nerves, and I mean ridiculously on your nerves. So the fans, they do really well. To have scored the results that they did get, but still been able to remain this quiet, it is a definite plus there. Now obviously I have run the fans and the pump off of the splitter but it's wired direct into a Molex. I've not then connected the Molex into the motherboard and then tried to set around lowering the fan speeds down or anything. They are running at 12 volts. And I have wired them up individually and tried it as well, so not going through the splitter didn't really make any difference, but just to kind of rule out anyone going, oh, if you didn't plug that in and that does this and this does that, it doesn't. I tried it, it tests results are the same. So that's kind of like that little bit covered. The pump is, I know people say about the stronger pump and stuff like that, it is the noisiest of all of the kind of all-in-one loops that I've ever tested. Now I'm not surprised by that because it is technically a DDC pump in there, and they are renowned for buzzing like homos anyway. You have to make sure they're on dampers or sat on foam. You can't just mount them in your case. And I did the older brother of this, and it was actually called the H220 then. And essentially the pump was mounted in the radiator, and it just hummed across all of the radiator. And then when you mounted it in your case, it was diabolical. I honestly don't understand how that thing even got out of research and development. Swiftech needed their ass kicking. Now I wasn't surprised when this appeared, to be honest with you, because I've got it here, but I've got the one without a pump, which is a bit annoying. But the Apogee 2. Now, when this was released, I'm not surprised that they've kind of taken essentially the rough idea with it. This is just a more basic version, but essentially all they've done is then attached it to a radiator with a reservoir in it, and you know, Bob's your uncle, you've got your loop. So it is still, you can take it all apart, you know, and extend the hoses and stuff, but I think the hoses on this are too long. And as I've said, I've got them round this way, but if you have a look at all of the images online, they've got the hoses up the front, so you've got this big drag of hose that doesn't look so daft. But I think these hoses are too long. I've never really had an all-in-one unit with any kind of semi-sensible case, or you know, mainstream case that's not really massively designed for water cooling, that I've needed longer hoses on. Really, all they've done is they've turned it that way round because I think these are too long, and they're just trying to get away from that. Also, I think really by having the hose on either side, it does make it more difficult to make them look tidy. I know you can, you know, you could rotate it and you could probably make it a little bit better. But I've just mounted it with the Swiftech logo the right way up. So I don't really like the long hose. Now, there are people out there that instantly are going to go, well, just, you know, just trim them down. You can take it apart and trim them down, and that is true. But the thing is I think with these things, especially like, because I've got a H100 on the floor, it's like an all-in-one water cooling unit, the H100. This, to me, is more like a pre-built kit. It's not an all-in-one unit at all because you can expand it. But now we're talking about expanding it. This is where my biggest gripe with this thing is the all-in-one water coolers. I have to admit, I took a long time to warm to them. All of the earlier ones I hated. The H50, the H70. I think the first Corsair one that I actually liked was the H100, and I had umpteen arguments with their rep. You know, in the early days, I despised them because they were too noisy. They didn't really perform well enough. I mean, that was around the time when, as far as I was concerned, you couldn't really get much better than an HD14, and that cooler does really still hold its own in the air cooling market today. My problem with this, I think this is a step too close to water cooling, because essentially, like I said, all it is, it's an all-in-one. It's a water cooling kit that just comes pre-assembled, and people will be saying, oh, but you can add a reservoir and you can put a GPU in it. I wouldn't want to put a GPU in this at all. And I know there are people online that have done it already and they go, no, yeah, but it's all right. But I look at those temps and I've got to admit to those people that are saying it's mustard, saying it's good, I look at those temps and I would not be happy with that. I really wouldn't. GPUs will always look good when you pass water over a block. The temps normally do work really well, but to have like a 12-15 degrees temperature increase on my CPU, and you've seen the results that we got today, because I plumbed in a GPU in it, I wouldn't be happy with that. And I certainly wouldn't be happy with having to turn my fans louder or anything like that. Now, I know there are people out there that will run a CPU and a GPU off of a slim radiator with, you know, really fast fans running, and they're happy with it. That's, you know, that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. To me, that's not what water cooling's about. To me, water cooling's about it being cool, yeah, fair enough, but I will always choose better looking over performance. Orca was built on that notion. I actually run my CPU block in reverse because it looks better, just because I could make the hosing on it look better, and I could have turned the block upside down and had it running the right way, and I didn't, because I didn't want the coolants logo the other way around. So for me, water cooling should be about, you'll always get decent temperatures if you choose the right bits anyway, but good looking and quiet are really the way I will go. Orca, to put it into context, maxed out, the CPU just about gets to 70 degrees. And I'm more than happy with that. Absolutely rip snorting happy with it, because it's got an enormous overclock, 2 graphics cards, motherboard, everything. It runs silent, even though I've got, you know, 13 fans in it, 12 of them on rads. We're talking too much about Orca. With this, I don't see the point in you buying this and then expanding it. I would just say to you straight from the get-go, you would be better off just going with a custom kit. I don't see why you would want to limit yourself with this to start off with. To starters, I really don't rate that radiator at all. And that's probably it, to be honest with you. You can do better buying custom other stuff. If you need a thin radiator, then straight off the bat, XSPC have got one at 30mm and one at 40mm. You can get the all copper Alpha Cool 30mm, great little rad, great build quality. You can run quiet fans on it. It's built to be quiet, you know, much quieter than this. Pump wise, why limit yourself to one on, you know, on a GPU block? If the pump goes, you've got to take it all apart, try and find another one. It's just get yourself a DDC, and then you can turn it up and down. I did use the, get a D5, the round ones, and that you can turn up and down. The DDCs are good, and I did use them way back in the day. I don't think I'd use them now, because they're too, you have to be too anal about dampening them. There's no way that you can make them properly quiet and still look nice. Or at least that's my opinion on it. So this for me, it fuzzes or greys the area between what should be an all-in-one water cooling loop and then, you know, a proper custom built water cooling kit. This is just, you know, bits put together and built for you, ready. And as you've seen, if this is all that you want, you know, to start off with, you're actually better off just buying one of these. Yeah, you might want to change the fans if you want them to look a little bit better. But those fans go real quiet, so it doesn't really make a lot of difference. And then if you did, you want more than a H100i, and you want to start thinking further down the line about, you know, graphics card water blocks, motherboard water blocks, that kind of stuff, just do it properly the first time. Don't limit yourself by, you know, getting this and then building around it. It's utterly pointless. You can make yourself something that looks 10 times better, because, I mean, that doesn't look nice. The block itself is all right, but the way that the hose goes on the sides and stuff, and it's just plastic, it just doesn't look nice at all. And like I said already, the performance isn't there to kind of back the looks up. And if you're here because you want to buy Swiftech products and stuff, and then why not just get the Apogee as a starting block? I know this one, like I said, comes without a pump, but you can get them with the pump. Get this as a starting block, and then get yourself some decent radiators. And to be fair, I wouldn't use Swiftech rads. But you can start with that, because I think really it's the CPU block and pump thing that a lot of people that will end up buying this will get because they think it's easier. But with the Apogee, you can obviously put your own barbs in, so you can put coloured barbs in, black ones, white ones, red ones, fucking whatever ones you want. And then you can start with this, and then you can just build it on. You know you're going to need a res, you know you're going to need a rad, you know you're going to need blocks, but you can, you know, base it around the same sort of thing, but you'll end up with a much better looking product. So yeah, my utmost thing is, if you're buying this to upgrade it, you would be better off to go elsewhere, and you're going to massively limit yourself, and it will never ever look properly like custom pretty. I know there's a couple of people out there always shouting this is the best thing since sliced bread. And to be fair, that just says to me that their standards aren't very high, because I really don't see the point in this. You either want to go with an all-in-one water cooling unit, which you can pick up the H100 now. I'd say most you're going to pay for is about 100 quid. Aria had it for £90 the other day. It was £89 something. And when you say those kind of prices, and considering that it does perform better, then you're like, well, you might as well get that. And then if you do want to go, the custom route, and the fact that you want to add all this shit in and all that kind of stuff, just go custom altogether. I think this is a very they're trying to add too many price points in. The only way this really, for me, would have worked better would have been if it was a proper sealed all-in-one water cooling unit. And all right, we've still not seen the price yet, but I think it would still need to be cheaper. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, it's got a DDC on it and the pump's stronger. Well, I've shown you in the results that pump, it hasn't really made any difference, to be fair. Those pumps actually did get hot as well, which is why this comes with a heat sink on it. When you look, that's a heat sink to have kept the pump cool, and yeah, that one hasn't got one. Yeah, I'm not that enthused about this. I know people have been shouting all over the place, and this is just one of those times where I've kind of looked at the results, and I have expected it to be better. I personally expected this to beat the H100i. Talking to the Corsair guys as well, they were kind of expecting it to as well, because of, a proper radiator, better pump, blah, 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 blah. They thought it'd be a degree or two in front, not 3 or 4 degrees behind. I think they were really surprised. And just to let you know something as well, when I did the 4.6 gigahertz test, the original test that I did was at 22 degrees in the room. And it was a late afternoon, I'd been testing all day. I waited until 11 o'clock in the evening, had the window open, and retested when it was 19 degrees to give it a better shot, so that people couldn't say, oh, it was because the room was too warm and the ambient was too warm. So I actually, on that last test, it scored much better because I did the test at a cooler time of the day. And I did that just to try and narrow the gap down a bit, because if I'd have posted the 22 degrees ambient scores, people would have been like, it was a fudged run or whatever, and people wouldn't have been happy with it. And another thing, before people start arguing again and again and again, I have retested this in the 4.6 gigahertz test with 3 different mounts. And by that I mean I've taken it off, cleaned all the thermal paste away, repasted it, spread it all out, been real careful, put it all back on. And it was always within between 1/4 degree and 1/2 degree's difference. And that was it across all the tests. And I've taken the results that we took the results from were from the coolest of the 3 tests. So I've put a lot of work into this to try and take away from any possible ways of people going, it's because you didn't do this, or it's because you didn't do that. I've covered everything. There's nothing I've missed. And I'm as surprised as you are. So don't think I'm giving this a kick because, because he does loads of work with Corsair or anything like that. I'm honestly as surprised as you are. I properly want a manufacturer to come out and beat these other brands. And the reason for my thinking behind that is, I don't want there to be a king for 3 years. I want there to be a different king every 3 or 4 months. I want products to be, constantly updating and evolving, because if all of a sudden there is, a sudden leap forward in technology, so Swiftech released another one for argument's sake, and it's 5 degrees better than the H100i, that then gives Corsair the kick up the arse to go and make theirs better. And it goes over and over, and that's with everything. I want that to happen. I want AMD to bring us out the best possible CPU ever, just so that Intel go, shit, better start working a bit harder. We'll release this a bit earlier now. That's what I want. I want there to be a constant evolution and, stuff taking massive leap forwards. So when something like this does come through and we think, hey, it's going to be all right, and it's not, I actually feel let down. The silver award, I have to admit, I always thought to myself that if I had a cooler that made that 4.6 gigahertz graft, what I would do is I would say gold award, and then I would have to explain why it's not got the gold award. And for me with this, it's the pump noise, because I don't like that, although it is at 12 volts, but the long hosing, and and really we are expecting that price to be kind of high. The only way this would get a gold award would be if it was 100 quid. If it was £100, 99.99 RRP, then I may decide to bump it up again. But I honestly think this is going to be more like 120, 125, and at that price, I don't think that it's gold worthy. The scores are good, but they're not brilliant, and there's just too many kind of little niggly things for me to think, yeah, that's worth a gold, because I don't think it is. And if you have a look, I'll put the link underneath to the main review on Overclock 3D, where you can see all the graphs and everything like that. If you see we do price, performance, and presentation, and it was really when I scored that I decided not to. And if I'm just going to click on the review now so I can see it, I am still here. Preview, because it's visible for me. Right, so performance I gave it an 8, but then for price and presentation I only gave it a 7. I don't think that's very pretty, so that's why I give it a 7. It's the hose really that lets it down. Price 7, that's gauging on it being 119.99. If it goes up beyond that, I may even knock that down a little bit more. And I will say, if I find out that it's more than 129.99, I'll mark it down to bronze as well. So there's a lot kind of hanging in that price. If it does come out that it is, you know, quite expensive, especially like over 130 quid, then it's just a complete no-brainer. Don't bother even thinking about it. So I know this conclusion has seemed negative, and to be fair, there are good reasons for it, but the score, it does still perform really, really well. It's within kind of like 3 or 4 degrees of the H100i all the time, but especially when we're talking about H100i at maximum, it is a bit quieter, so it does win some brownie points there. I just think I was expecting more, and I think Swiftech could have done better. Also, I think they could have made it look nicer. Like I said, if I turn the hose round, it doesn't look, the radiator around, it doesn't look as daft. But this is the way I always mount them, and it's the way most people mount them as well. They have the hose at the back. As far as people saying it blocks up the rear fan, it doesn't really make any difference. But anyway, so I've said everything. I'm not going to say it again. If you want a custom loop and you want to use Swiftech stuff, base it around the Apogee drive too. If you want an all-in-one kind of sealed, no maintenance water cooling loop, then just get the H100i. Simple as. Buy this? No, don't think you should. But I know there's going to be a lot of people out there. There's one reviewer already I'm seeing that's going to be saying, I don't know what I'm talking about, but maybe my standards are slightly higher. This really isn't viable for me, I don't think. But anyway, let me know what you think underneath. Also, and it's something we've never really shouted about, is when I do reviews like this, we always have a discussion thread on the OC3D forums. Come and join into the discussion. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Did you want it and I've now talked you out of it? Come and let us know. There's always a good group of lads there, and we always do have a good you know, chit chat, and that is the only way that you're going to get a discussion out of me as well, because obviously I'll be posting in the threads and you'll see me popping up every now and then. So yeah, that's that. But only the silver award, and as I've said, the price, if it's real cheap, I'll happily put the award up to gold. But if it's too much, I'll also drop the award even further. And because I think I am being pretty generous with the silver, to be fair. But anyway, we need to end here because we've been here for ages anyway. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with the Swiftech H220 review with another video for you